I hope you're ready for an absolute hodgepodge of angling awesomeness. We started off with one of the inventors of the Flogger, Elite Series Pro Chad Pipkins. As if that wasn't enough, we bring in a guy who may have just caught the brand new world record tarpon, YouTube super stud from BlackTipH, Josh. And to round it out, we bring in the editor-in-chief of Bassmaster Magazine, James Hall, to talk about the 100 best Bass Lakes. This week on...
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Happy Wednesday, happy hump day, and welcome back to Mercer. Busy show here this week, so we better jump right into it. I mean, we've done a bunch of these now, and we did roughly half of them with multiple guests and half of them with one guest. This one, we're going back to multiple guests, and I don't know where we'll end up. We're all over the place. But we can guarantee you week after week, I will be here on Wednesday with an awkwardly honest fishing podcast. And as I said, happy hump day. What are we celebrating today? Let's have a look. It is National Father and Daughter Take a Walk Day. How nice is that? National Strawberry Sundae Day, National Macaroni Day. And are you ready for this? It is actually National Dive Bar Day. National Dive Bar Day. I mean, everything gets a day. But I said we got lots going on. I got two tournaments to get to right after this, back-to-back events to finish off the Bassmaster Elite Series season in the north. And going to be going to Champlain and then followed by Waddington, New York. And we're going to decide who our Angler of the Year is, who our Rookie of the Year is, and who wins those last two events. A Bassmaster Classic berth on the line for the last event. So lots going on. But speaking of that last event being on the St. Lawrence River, a big story this past week was kind of an old story, and that's the Flogger. I mean, the Flogger is a thing in the north that's been around for a long time. It's nothing new, but it kind of made a lot of news this past week with the MLF event that was held on the Thousand Islands. I mean, generally there isn't a bass event that early in the year or a pro level event that gets that many eyeballs on it, and that's why the Flogger is such a big story. And I mean, since the Flogger is such a big story, we might as well get the Flogfather on himself. I was not aware of this until just recently, but I actually know one of the founders of the Flogger, one of the inventors. And you guys know him. You see him week after week on the Bassmaster Elite Series. Let's bring him in right now, Chad Pipkins. Chad Pipkins, I thank you for spending a little time with me here. And this past week, one of the biggest controversies is one of the oldest stories if you fish for smallmouth. Really, I mean, there's this brand new thing out. It seems called a Flogger, and it really has caused a bit of a controversy online, but it's also brought...
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Controversy with a cone? The dumbest thing I've ever heard. People are lazy. That's all I got.
You think it's just they see it and they're like, yeah.
Here's why it's a controversy, because some people don't want to put in the work to do it. 100%. That's what I said before. There's guys that are older, a little bigger, a little less, agile. They don't want to lay on the deck and do it. If they could do that, they would do it all day long. I'm not trying to be rude. You can use front sonar, side imaging, you have polarized glasses to see in the water, every advantage on your boat, but you can't use a single cone. It's because somebody doesn't want to lay on their deck and have their knees bleeding and, get a bloody mouth and the thing hits you in the face, your back hurts. I mean, I've done it for 3 or 4 days in practice and in a tournament. And you are wore out, and I just think that's one of the main reasons, because not everybody can do it. So.
Yeah, and it really is. I mean, it's one of those things, and it also is one of those things that you look at somebody do it, like two buddies out there. Doing it by yourself is a whole different thing. Like if it's you and your buddy and you're in a team tournament, it's one thing, but doing it by yourself is physically tasking. Like you're going to get beat up
for sure. It's funny because I've waited. I won my first tournament, I think 13 years ago with that thing. And since then, I've always just give me one chance at a big event where that's the deal. I've never had that, though. And it's funny that the stars aligned this week for those guys. And it shows how productive you can be with it. But when I was doing it, I didn't have spot lock, and it was just me. I mean, it was brutal. I would line up with the trolling motor, and then quickly, I'd be running the trolling motor with one hand, rod in this hand, and then I'd let the flogger float, and I'd grab the flogger, and I'd have like 5 to 10, 15 seconds to get him to bite, and I'd have to steer with my hand again and go back over here, and then set the hook, then pick up this, then that. I mean, there was no spot lock. Now I'm just like, man, that'd be nice to sit in the middle of the boat and just go to town.
Yeah, and I guess you're right. That's why it stayed a secret, because I mean, there hasn't been any. I mean, there's very few pro level events that match up. It's a betting thing, you know. Normally, those events are, you know, a few weeks after that, anyways. And this MLF event this past week brought light to it. But you are, I mean, and I didn't even know this, and I pride myself on knowing stuff about you guys, but proving that I'm an idiot. You're kind of one of the flog fathers, one of the original
flog fathers. The craziest thing is that the name the Flogger has nobody knows why it's called a flogger, and it's the most random thing ever. I mean, me and my buddy fished a BFL the first time, and it was dead glass calm, and I could see everything. Next day out, it was a ripple. I couldn't see anything. So I'm like, dude, there's got to be a better way. So I went to Walmart at the time, snatched up a snorkel. And just the next few days, that's what I used the first BFL. I snorkeled around. I'd use 2 drift socks and lay on the back deck and just float. I mean, I know how much painting and concrete and stuff I had to do to make $3-4 grand. So floating around back there, I'd throw buoys out, mark them, come back. And that's how I found my fish and ended up catching almost 28 pounds and won like $4,500. I think I was 24 years old, and that's how I won my first BFL, with a snorkel, used part in the tournament, mostly in practice, to find them. And then another buddy of mine, Jeff Cox, he's what I would call a little bit lazier, one of the other flog fathers, but not one that wants to get wet, you know, cold water in the face. He's a guy that just wants to hold the flogger up in a team tournament. So he did a little legwork and found it overseas and got the first one here. And the funny thing is, it got its name actually up in Waddington, where those guys are at, on the St. Lawrence River. My buddy Ryan Said and I were scouting for, I think it was a Stren series at the time. And we went up and we're doing exactly what you said, team tournament, but we're just messing around. You know, he's doing the rod. I'm like, no, he's got it. You know, we're having an absolute blast, because it is insane what you can learn. Like, those fish pick the bait up, and the guy fishing the rod doesn't even feel it. You're like, no. I mean, it's really neat how you can see him react. And I've seen fish pick up a crayfish and go over 2 or 3 feet and spit him out. Like, he's just got him by the back. Crayfish comes crawling over, and they go back and drop him off again, and they don't even eat him. You know, and that first time we were seeing all this stuff firsthand, and we're just blown away. And my buddy's like, man, we're putting the flog on him. I'm like, what the hell's a flog? You know, and he's like, my favorite band's Flogging Molly. I'm like, yeah, we're using the flogger. And and that's how it stuck. I mean, which is pretty wild and stupid too. But
do you think Flogging Molly has any idea that they were part of a fishing trend?
I don't even know who Flogging Molly is. So
neither do I.
I did listen to one of their songs after that, because I'm like, I got to at least know what this is. I don't remember now, but I did at the time. At least heard one of the songs to pay tribute to the flogger. So
you went like for a streak, what, like 3 events in a row or whatever? Were you one using that? Is that true, or is that just part of the fabled story?
These odd trophies I get. This is my like Zoom spot. See those odd, like, I don't want to say like perverted trophy shaped trophies back there?
Well, they do look.
They look like a different
shadow. I mean, it's a jumping bass, clearly, Chad. I don't know what you're thinking.
It could look like another trophy from a different industry. But
yes.
Anyway, they're the BFL trophies. It was 2008, 9, and 10. The first year was a snorkel mask. The next year was the first flogger. And that's when me and just a few of my buddies had it, and we just crushed. Like, nobody knew what it was. I mean, I remember catching all my fish and just taking my co-anglers around. I'm using the cone for them. I'm like, no, just a little over here. I had 3 co-anglers win. I mean, it was just fun. You could catch all the big ones and save like the 4.5 pounders for the guy in the back. And it was an absolute blast. And then the third year, I knew it was different, because I went out to like a couple flats I like to fish, and there was a cone on every single person's deck. And I was like, uh-oh. But again, getting back, the funny thing about the flogger and all of the technology is the same guys that were winning before, still winning, are going to find a way to win. They just use the technology. It ups the game. But the guys that were winning without it were still winning. Same thing with the Mega Live, the front sonar, the 360. Everybody finds a way to use the technology, but for some reason, whatever those guys have that win, like Wheeler wins a lot, and he finds a way to win with the new technology as well. It just kind of raises the bar. You know?
Yeah. Do you think the people that hate the flogger, that are hating on the flogger, they the same people that hate on forward facing sonar?
I'm going to guess they are. There's people that, don't want change. And I get that. I know a lot of people like that. Like they want the old school flip phone because that's what works. But my dad was one of those guys, hated it. And once he got an iPhone in that guy's hand, all of a sudden he's like, what? I can watch my son fish on this. I can scroll here. You can't get the damn thing out of his hand. Yeah. So I think if you were able to, take some of those guys out and show them how amazing it can be and get them to learn it. And so where they feel comfortable learning themselves, I think they'd like it because it's another weapon. Like, some people say, you shouldn't sight fish. It's not fair, but then I'm like, well, what do you do in the spring? They're like, well, I go flip shallow bushes and shallow trees. I'm like, you're sight fishing with your eyes closed. You're just doing it less effectively than the guy that's looking, It's like, you're going to catch those same fish. And yeah.
How frustrating is it for you as one of the flog fathers to have waited your whole career for a fishery to match up with a tournament and really for this technique to shine? And it happened 2 weeks before you were on said fishery, and probably by the time you get there, the fishery will be so different that it won't flog and matter.
It is funny because I knew that would happen. I mean, so many things have to line up. Like they got to be spawning, they have to be deep, they have to be clear, and they have to be in the act of getting out there too, or for it to sustain 4 days. Like there's got to be enough flats and places. If it's just a place where guys can go down the bank, everybody finds them in a day or two. But when you have these places that are so vast with the flats, like you really, you can, I remember being out there, I've had the 3 BFL wins, I think. And then at St. Lawrence, I did a top 10 with it once. And then at Champlain, I did one once also for a Bass Open, but it was just mixed in where you catch like 3 or 4 fish a day. I remember one time we were there in July, I think I had 9 big smallmouth on.
Yeah.
And that's it. Outside of that, like I couldn't even figure out how to get a bite. So I would kind of catch like 3 a day and then 4 the next day and then save 2, it's kind of like strategy. But the guys this week, I'm just jealous because they're just out there when you get in the right ears, they are everywhere. And you just put that thing down and the more you want to push down on it and bend it, the further you can see, the more times you're going to get hit in the face and hurt your back. But I mean, it's a lot of fun.
What are the biggest mistakes people make with floggers? Give me Flogger 101.
Flogger 101, like when they find a big one, they're like, man, I got to get out of here. I don't want anybody to see me near this fish. Like the way those fish spawn, and they're like bluegill. I mean, if there's one here, there's probably 1 here, 2 there. I mean, that time when I found those 9 at Thousand Islands, my co-angler the first day had 3 over 4 also, and he was throwing I would be specific to where I know my other beds aren't out the back, and he would still catch one because I didn't spend enough time in those areas. The more you float around that stupid thing, you're just going to keep finding them.
Yeah.
The other thing that I like to do is I really like, especially when it's later in the spawn, like sometimes they come 10 yards to eat it. When they get locked on, and that could happen in some of our events where they've been on for 7, 8, 10 days. I mean, they don't move, and you could dance your bait all around. They're not going to get it. And my thing is when they do get it, I want to make sure that they ate it. So I'm down there. I want to watch them eat it. I want to watch the bait disappear. I don't want to feel something pull in, because later in the year like that, if you get them once, they're gone. They probably won't come back. And
yeah.
Even if you lose them once. So I just want to make sure they got it good and we got them in the mouth.
The thing that amazed me the first time I used it years ago is, and you said it, I mean, how often they grab your bait, you don't feel it. I mean, they're not eating it. They're moving it off their bed this time of year. And there's times where you feel that tonk. And then when you're looking through the flogger, you're like, that's not even an eat. That's its tail, like knocking it off the bed. It's amazing. It gives you x-ray vision, and it upsets a lot of people, I guess.
It does. Again, I think those people are the people that are going to get upset about lots of things. So sorry for offending you, but it happens. But all I can say is what you do learn with that thing is amazing. Just because, like you said, I've had some bites on a Ned rig where they knock the rod out of your hand, a foot of slack in my line. I've never felt anything like Ned fishing like that. So I almost wonder, I mean, are they just, when they're eating like that, like you said, I think they're eating and devouring it other times. But when you're bed fishing like that, let's say you're 10, 12 foot of water, you got little slack, half the time you really don't ever feel them do anything. It's just, they just put it in their mouth and they're getting ready to spit it out. So there's no big heavy hit. It's neat. You can actually feel them, like you said, swim across your line. And if they happen to get spooked, you can feel the tail. And I'm like, so that's what that was. I wasn't getting a bite. I just happened to pull my bait across the fish's back. You can learn a lot.
Yeah, you can learn a lot. I got one more question for you because everyone wants to know. I mean, so are you loaded from the Flogger fund? I mean, is the Flogger fund bulbous?
It's funny you asked that. We used to get a little Flogger royalty back in the day when it first started. The guys at Poor Boys and Lure Craft were my first sponsor, and we if I'd had some money back then, we would have helped with distribution, or we really wanted to make our own. We looked into it was like 10 to 15 grand to get like the machining figured out, and we could have made a killing. That you could probably make them for like $10, but just didn't have the money at the time. So they helped us out and got the Floggers, and they were kind of the distributor. And we used to get a little bit of money for each one. We probably made, I don't know, between all of us, maybe 5 to 10 grand or something, which is cool at the time. That was good money. And, you know, we were pumped, but to see how many now are going to be sold and stuff, you're kind of like, damn, missed the boat on that. Wish I would have spent a little bit more back then, took a risk, and maybe we could be making it rain for the baby's diaper fund and shoes and pants and all that good stuff.
Well, I know you're leaving for 2 back-to-back tournaments that I think you'll do very well in. Go flog and win, Chad.
I'm gonna try. That
wasn't very smooth.
We're gonna get flogging after it.
I know you flogging can. This is flogging ridiculous. Chad Pipkins, I'll see you in a few days. Thank you very much for that flogging good information.
Only the best for you, Dave. Flogger out.
I mean, I would say that was super pro. I don't know about you, but I mean, Flogger's a big story, and I went out there and I hunted down one of the inventors and got you the word. But that's not the only big story we're bringing you this week. Another big one just happens to be a brand new world record tarpon. That's right. Unbelievable accomplishment happened last week. And if you've been anywhere near YouTube, I mean, previous to this, you've seen this guy. BlackTipH is one of the most popular fishing YouTube channels there is out there. I think he's got just under 3.5 million subscribers. It's unbelievable. I am absolutely envious and jealous of everything this guy's accomplished on YouTube, and it continues to accomplish. From BlackTipH, the brand new world record holder for tarpon. Let's bring him in right now, Josh. Joined by Josh Jorgensen from BlackTipH. And dude, we know each other as guys who pass each other at ICAST and like say hello to each other. But when I see somebody catch a fish that is literally the biggest fish maybe ever caught in a species by mankind, I need to reach out to you. Tell me what is happening in your life.
Well, we just caught what very well could have been the all-tackle world record tarpon, but instead of killing it, we released it. But it was an absolute freak of nature, and we caught it in a place that I had no idea there was even tarpon. So we caught it in Colombia. And there are no tarpon in the Pacific. So all the tarpon that are in the Pacific escaped through the Atlantic Ocean, through the Panama Canal, and came into the Pacific. So they're not native species. They're all invasive, and they get huge there.
And how big was this particular fish?
Estimated weight formula from the Bonefish Tarpon Trust put it at 312 pounds, which beat the world record by over 25 pounds. The current world record is 286.
So is it somewhat less cooler or cooler that you weren't even fishing for this fish?
You know, I don't know. I mean, it was just like I tossed a bait at a rock. I was trying to get a Cubera snapper, and he ate it.
Yeah. Wow. And now tell me what that experience is like, because I do know that any instance you have with a record fish, especially a record, whether, you know, in freshwater, whether it's the largemouth record, the muskie record, in saltwater, the tarpon is definitely in that group too. There's a certain amount of hate that comes with that too, I would imagine too. I mean, of why didn't you kill it? Did you get it seems like every record is surrounded by controversy.
Yeah. I mean, fishermen are just jealous people. A lot of them are. I mean, you know, I don't care. I mean, because at the end of the day, you know, I've learned after catching so many big fish that, I mean, it's different. You know, I remember I grew up in the Great Lakes fishing. So I grew up muskie, bass fishing, walleye fishing. So I understand that. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle to relate. If you've never gone true deep sea fishing, if you never fought a blue marlin or something that requires the captain to move and maneuver the boat to assist the angler, it's not one person. It's a team. If the captain doesn't drive the boat properly, you might as well just cut the line. is it ain't happening. You know, it takes a team to land a fish like that. And, you know, I mean, I know it like when I hooked it, I have a herniated disc. I herniated my disc in a little UTV accident in March 28th this year. So while I was fighting the tarpon, I hooked it. My legs started going numb, so I had to pass the rod off. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, either I keep fighting the fish and end up in a wheelchair, or you know, I pass the rod off. So I decided to pass the rod off. I tried grabbing it back again later in the fight, and same thing happened, but worse. My knees locked up, so I was like, okay, I'm done. You know.
Yeah.
So you know, there was a lot of people complaining. We released a fish. We had no idea we had caught a record. We caught this fish. It was massive. We could barely. I mean, it took 4 people to pick it up. The thing was unbelievably heavy, and it was just gigantic. We let it go. We're like, wow, that was enormous. And then we started talking, and, you know, I remember Robert said, you know, I just caught it a couple of weeks ago. I caught a 250-pound swordfish, and that was way easier to lift up than this thing. And then I started thinking, well, yeah, you're right. I just recently caught a 211-pound yellowfin, and that was way easier than this thing. You know, and I could pick up a 150-pound yellowfin by myself. I was like, how big was this thing? So we didn't realize what we had caught until we got back to the lodge and started looking at Google Images and went, oh my gosh, did we just release the world record?
Yeah. It's wild. It's wild. I mean, I had a similar experience when years ago, I caught a tambaqui, which a vegetarian piranha, and it was the record, but same deal, had no idea on the water until afterwards. But I remember that feeling when you're just like, I mean, I never cared about an actual record. I mean, it's an obscure fish anyways, but you know what I mean? Like, it was just the feeling of, wow, we did something, and you guys, everybody in that boat will be bonded for life just because of that experience.
That's exactly it. You know, and me, like, you know, getting a record on paper is cool. Like that triple tail you see right there, that should have been a Louisiana state record. But we didn't ice it properly, and we lost too much weight.
Yeah.
We missed the record by a couple ounces, and that fish lost well over 2 pounds in transport. So that was frustrating. You know, I mean, yeah, for a fish that you'd either eat or that, but killing a fish, like, it's just not in my brain to kill a tarpon. You know, I've never killed one. And it's just not in my mindset. Go, yeah, let's gap this thing and kill it. You know, like, this is not how I'm wired, you know? But, you know, that's why we didn't even think about it, you know? But I imagine if we had been with someone that is an active world record, you know, chaser, they probably would have said differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Last question, because this boggles my mind when I look at your life and everything you've accomplished. I mean, who cares about being in a record book? Because more people will see said record on your YouTube channel than would ever see it in any print anywhere, in my opinion. But to be one of the top YouTubers in the sport, to have accomplished everything you've accomplished, and to do it in saltwater, but to have grown up in freshwater, this all blows me away. How did this happen? How are you? The last thing people would think about your history is that you grew up in Ontario. How did this happen?
I grew up in Windsor, Ontario, and hey, Davis, guys, I'm doing an interview right now.
It's very professional. Tell them how professional I am.
Yeah. So I grew up in Windsor, Ontario, and I just loved fishing. I fished nonstop. And I remember, you know, being the kid that would run around catching garpike and catfish and carp. And you know, then the ultimate prize for me was always big muskie. You know, you know, like I caught a million smallmouth bass and largemouth bass and all that stuff. But I always was chasing that. And, you know, in 2003, my parents got a condo in Florida, you know, and I saw a shark get caught from the beach, and that was it, you know. And then I started posting land-based shark fishing videos. I was the first one to start doing that in 2006 is when I uploaded my first video on YouTube, and they took off. And I was like, okay. So I started making more. You know, we started filming them with a little handy cam, like a little 144p resolution piece of garbage, you know. And I've been doing it for a long, long time, and it just took on a life of its own. You know, it was a hobby that became a career, and you know, I try never to lose my vision, you know, like why I do this. I don't do this because I'm trying to be famous. I don't care about that. I'm doing this because I really enjoy making fishing videos. Like it's really like when we film a great video, it's hard for me to sleep because I just want to go and we want to edit it. We want to cut it up. We want to make a great video. So that's all I'm thinking about. How are we going to cut this? What's it going to look like? You know, all day long, that's all I think about.
It's a weird addiction, and it shows through though. Like I think that if you talk to most people that are making content that I think is pretty cool, it's that addiction. It's that I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but when you go fishing without a camera, it almost, you're just like, oh, I'm not sharing this with anyone. It is a weird addiction, but it's something I thank you for doing, because you do a pretty incredible job, and it's pretty entertaining. Is it more fun to catch a world record tarpon or take the Gronks or the Pauls fishing?
I'll be honest, man. It was so cool catching that fish, but it's not, I don't even think it's close to my favorite fish I've ever caught. You know, like it's a great fish, but like, you know, I don't know, you know, like that's why, like, I find it amazing how many people are getting all worked up about it. Like I'm not like, it's an amazing fish, but I'm not like, oh my gosh, I'm so great now. Look what I caught. I don't care. You know, like on the next video, you know, like people ask me all the time, why don't you fish tournaments? I'm like, dude, I fish a tournament every time I'm on the water. Like, what do you mean? Well,
same feeling.
Said we got $1,800 in cost the second we get out there. So that's our entry fee. And if we don't get a video, we lose our entire day and we don't have anything to produce content for the next week. So the pressure's on. And if I hook a huge fish, that's a potential $20,000, $30,000 fish, you know, in its lifetime of revenue. So if I lose it, it's like losing a tournament winning fish. So there's a lot of stress, a lot of just, like I said, stress when you're out there trying to produce something, and it's always a challenge. You know, there's a lot of days that people don't see that where we fail, you know, and it's those days have taught us how, you know, how important it is not to fail, you know, and, you know, what I thought was interesting, I knew when we posted this video that people would get upset. I knew they would, because, you know, people in Florida, and this is the key thing, right? People in Florida has a law where you can't take a tarpon over 40 inches out of the water, okay? But for example, in Louisiana, I can go to Louisiana right now and go kill a tarpon.
Yeah.
You know, nobody cares there. You know, it's 2 states over. You know, well, I don't have to obey Florida fishing laws everywhere I go. You know, like if I go to Louisiana, you're allowed to keep so many trout, so many redfish. The limit per angler is different.
Yeah.
You know, than Florida. So why do I have to obey Florida's fishing laws? And here's the next question I have. What they say, oh, the organs are getting crushed by the tarpon. I mean, look at this fish behind me. You know, what's the difference between his skeleton and a tarpon skeleton? I mean, you know, like what is getting crushed? You know, like they have thick scales, thick skin. You know, you're supporting his weight. What's the difference between picking a tarpon out of the water or a redfish or a snook?
Yeah.
Or a kingfish or a mahi-mahi? What's the difference? You know, like it's people just jumping on a bandwagon and going crazy. They don't know what they're talking about.
And I mean, it's no different than somebody from Canada yelling at somebody from Florida that posted a big picture of that or a video of them bed fishing a bass, which you can't do that. You know what I mean? And I think if you honestly, dude, I think if you chase those kinds of crap where somebody's like, well, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that. You know what? That's somebody, you're out living your life, and that's somebody who's not and is living their life in comments. And you know what I mean? Like the fact that if you didn't care about the fish, you would have clubbed it from the get-go.
Oh, we would have tapped it and it would have been done. It's like bluegill. Like in some states you can use bluegill for bait, in other states you can't use bluegill for bait. You know, it's just like and I remember growing up in Ontario. I remember when I was a kid, you could go to the bait shop and buy live frogs,
Yeah.
live crawfish. That's all been banned now. You can't even use it. You can't even. Here's the dumbest thing I've never understood in Ontario. Why can't you use a goby for bait?
Yeah, they
You're
want you to
supposed kill 'em,
eradicate them, but
you
not
can't use
as
it for
bait. It's so
It
dumb.
doesn't make any sense.
So
dumb.
dumb.
And that's where, like, some of the laws that get passed, you just go like, what is going on here? Like, I remember, I told you we started off as a land-based shark fishing show, where we just caught sharks on the beach.
Yeah.
In recent years, due to the diving community putting pressure on the FWC. Now, remember this, divers don't buy fishing licenses, okay? They created enough of an outcry that we're killing all these poor sharks from the beach, which we're not. But they made enough of an outcry where the FWC passed a law that says that now you need to take a course and get a permit just to fish for a shark from the beach. It's insane.
It's crazy. Crazy. But you can't get upset about that stuff, dude. Like, honestly, you can't. I mean, literally, the thing to remember is if you want nobody to complain about your record tarpon or nobody to complain about what you do, you can't do it in front of millions of people on YouTube, because it really doesn't matter what you do. I honestly think we could put a video up of think of something, of a freaking butterfly
catching out of the sabiki rig.
No, even prettier than that. A butterfly coming out of the chrysalid stage and flying away, and somebody would post, "That's an invasive butterfly," or "That I hate that thing. They eat dandelions." It's just the way the world is.
But you know what, Dave? One of the things that to your point, it's our responsibility as influencers to make sure that the fishing industry, the style of fishing, what we have grown up doing, what we consider normal, that it stays that way.
Yeah.
Because what's happening in the world is everything's being shifted to this new agenda. Like, I saw something about there was a movement, this keep them wet movement and no dry fish July or something like that, where they're trying to make this movement where you don't take a picture of any fish in the month of July and all fish stay wet. But this is real.
That's crazy.
I'll show it to you right now. And I commented about it. I said, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. How do you keep a wahoo wet? We eat them. Wahoo, tuna, mahi, snapper. It doesn't make any sense. This is what's going on right here. Look at this. No fish dry July. This is what it is right here. So you can't take a photo of a fish in July. And that's why I said it's our responsibility as anglers to fight for what we enjoy.
Yeah.
If you don't fight, these kinds of people will take it all away from you. They will take it away from you. They'll list you as an animal. You're committing animal cruelty. You're torturing these poor little fish. Blah blah blah. It's not true at all.
Yeah. It's not. I mean, dude, I had videos this week, and I'm sure you've dealt with it. That TikTok videos that are being marked as cruel. You know what I mean? Like, what you're about to watch, and this, you're just like, what? It's a fish eating a lure. There's nothing. I mean, I don't get it. But
it's our responsibility to fight for what we have, because every year we lose more and more. We just do. But the commercial fishermen lose nothing. They've actually increased the commercial fishing quota. Did you realize right now that along the entire East Coast from Maine all the way to Key West, we are seeing an exponential decrease in bait fish. Bait fish are disappearing at an exponential rate, where I've seen entire places completely just a desert now, like places that flourished with bait. We used to see sardine schools down here in Florida, 40 feet thick for acres. They don't exist anymore. They're gone. They've been fished out. These mega monster commercial boats, they drag nets. They, like the Omega boats, the Pogey boats. People won't, if you wouldn't believe it until you saw it, what they do. It's unreal. They're allowed thousands and thousands of pounds of bycatch. They kill bull reds, they kill cobia, they kill sharks, kill everything. These guys are annihilating bait fish, and there's no regulations on bait fish. Zero. When was the last time you heard of a bait fish regulation? Oh, you can only 20 poachers. That's what's happening right now. And I tell people, at the rate that I see this, in 5 years, you'd be lucky if you have a fishery. Because once you lose your bait fish, you have no predators. They have no reason to be there. There's no incentive. They move on.
And the bait fish are easy. Nobody's going to defend the bait fish. That's the honest truth of all of it. You know what I mean? And that
it's something that I'm about to become very passionate about. I'm collecting my facts, and then I'm probably going to start a movement to protect and preserve our bait fish, to shut down the commercial fishing. The problem is it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. These boats, it's being used for dog food, animal feed, cosmetics, fish oil pills. It's a monster industry. And I mean, I don't have all my facts straight yet, but it's really bad, dude. And like I said, they keep putting pressure on these recreational anglers, but the commercial guys get to go scot-free because they're organized, they lobby, and they're all being paid by these monster corporations that have tons of money.
Yeah, and it's the same with the anti-groups too. They're a lot better at what we're good at going fishing. We're good at go, but I mean, with what they've done with marine wildlife protection zones, you know what I mean? They make it seem like it all makes sense. We're going to just take 20% of this and shut it down, but they don't tell you that they're taking the 20% where 80% of the angling happens. I mean, they're just trying to drive anglers away, and it's nuts. I mean, it really is nuts. But you're welcome back here anytime to talk about all those nut jobs out there.
Yeah. Like I said, we just got to make sure we defend what we have, because they will take it away. And the problem with the recreational anglers is they are so divided. There's too many egos. There's too much pride. Everyone's fighting each other. And that's why I don't see us ever getting organized, because everyone's just fighting for their own selfish pride.
So how do we get organized? What is your point to anybody listening to this? Kill the hate and move forward together, or what is the
how do you ego and let's fight together? I mean, it's just what it has to be. It's not about who caught the biggest fish, or who cares. Like there's a lot more at stake. I look at I started realizing this last year, really, when I realized that we could no longer reproduce the content we had made 4 or 5 years ago. It doesn't exist anymore.
Wow.
So basically, a lot of our older content is like a documentary now, because that doesn't exist anymore. So
why? Because you can't do it, or it isn't available anymore?
It's not available anymore. That fishery's gone.
Wow.
Yeah. It's gone. So,
wow.
Yeah, that's when that was my wake up call. I'm like, wow, why we are struggling so hard to try to reproduce something that we can't reproduce anymore. This doesn't exist anymore.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
And like, I look at it like, is this going to be one of those stories where I'm going to tell my kids how great it used to be, or is it going to be one of those stories where we fight to protect what we have so that we can and let it come back? It doesn't take long for it to come back. We just need people need to be so less greedy. I mean, dude, right now you're allowed to keep 60 mahi per vessel, 10 mahi per boat. Let's do a little math here. Ready? Watch. That's recreational limits. So let's say there's 10,000 boats fishing between Key West and let's say Cape Canaveral, right? In one day. And let's say everyone caught their limit. This is theoretical. That's 600,000 mahi, right? Okay. Times, let's say that the average fish is 10 pounds. That's 6 million pounds of mahi harvested in one day recreationally. That's not sustainable.
No.
It's not sustainable. But no, it doesn't change the regulations. It should be 2 per person, 10 per vessel. It should be brought way down. Everything should be brought way down. There's no reason to kill that many mahi. It's stupid. And that's why right now, last year I made 7 trips for mahi. We covered over 200 miles. We saw tons of mahi. We only caught 2 keeper mahi and a keeper's 20 inches at the fork.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember like 5-6 years ago, we used to go out there and you could catch a 10, 20 pounder, you could be blind, trolling ballyhoo. And now you have to be ultra aggressive, running weed lines, searching for debris. It's hard to find fish now. And, you could fish all day and catch, maybe you might get lucky and find something that they're floating on and catch a dozen. But like, it's really hard now because everyone's pounding them.
Wow. It's scary. Scary. I mean, we started this as a 10-minute interview to celebrate you catching giant fish, and now we're
Well,
telling
you see where my
anglers-
real concern is. I don't care about, like, it's not about the biggest fish. I care about making sure our fisheries are sustainable, so that my kids, my oldest is 5 years old. What's going to happen when they're 25? What's the fishery look like?
Yeah. No, I agree. And more, and while we're celebrating all these new people coming into the sport, we need to sustain the sport and make sure that it's great for all those new people. But all right, well, you're coming back here now. Then you've set the table. Now you got to come back when you get all your ducks in a row and tell people what to do. Okay.
Yeah, man. I got a lot of fact checking, but there's a lot of data to collect. But I appreciate it.
Hey, your heart's in the right place, and as long as your heart's in the right place, generally things work out pretty good. And I want to thank you for sharing some information with us, and go catch some more giant fish.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so that is 100% not where I expected that interview to go, but Josh makes a very valid point. I mean, the most important thing about our sport is the resource. And if we don't fight to protect it, who will? So do the right thing, people. And a group that has fought to protect our resource for a long time, and I'm proud to work with that group, is Bassmaster. And they come out with a list every single year, the 100 Best Bass Lakes, Bassmaster 100 Best Bass Lakes. And the guy who puts that together is James Hall. So we have given you, the big controversial hot technique already. We have given you the new world record, and now why not just bring in James Hall so we can talk about the 100 Best Bass Lakes. James Hall, editor-in-chief of Bassmaster Magazine. Thank you for taking time for me here today.
Dave, it is my goal in life to take time for you, sir. Any of my fellow Canadians.
Yes.
I'm here for.
Yeah, you've always been a man of the people. That's one thing they say about you. And one other thing they say about you is one of your tasks throughout the year, and one of your babies is the best bass lakes in America, I guess it is classified. Or is it the best bass lakes in the world? It's America, right?
Yeah, it's the 100 Best Bass Lakes is United States primarily. And I've irritated some Canadians and some South Africans and even a couple of Japanese folks for not putting their lakes on the list. But yeah, we focus on the United States.
All right. So how long has this list been going, and how does it get decided?
Well, we started it in 2012. And it was my former boss, my great friend and mentor, Dave Precht, who recently retired. He and I were sitting around in his office one day talking about our bucket list of lakes that we have not fished, but we're really wanting to fish. And as we're going through these lakes, Clear Lake or Coeur d'Alene or Cayuga, just take a pick. We're like, this is really interesting conversation, and probably everybody has it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, we should probably just print a bucket list for our readers, kind of go through what lakes are really hot right now. Because I think at the time, Falcon had gone off.
Oh yeah.
So we're like, there's probably lakes like Falcon all over the United States that people just don't know about. And so that's what spawned the concept. We thought it was going to be a good one-time shot, and the popularity of it in 2012 kind of forced us to do it again. And it went from, I think, maybe a 6-page feature into the biggest editorial project that we currently have at Bassmaster. I think it takes up 13 pages.
Wow.
So it's become very popular. And all from me and Dave sitting in his office one day thinking, how can we boondoggle ourselves to Falcon or to Champlain,
It's Dave's gift that keeps on giving. I mean, he retired a few years. I got an idea. I'll set up that James Hall for something that'll ruin his year every year.
Every year, man. I hate it. And I say I hate it, and I do. There's a hatred for this project that lives in my heart that will never die until I retire. But it's also a labor of love because it's painful. It takes us about 2 months, 2 months worth of research to get to the where we begin creating the rankings. We employ 3 writers and myself to put them together. And then once we get the research, because we ask all the fisheries biologists in every state to rank their own lakes. And so they do that for us. Then we reach out and survey the Bass Nation guys.
So it starts with the fishery resort. Like it starts with it. Is that just like the people that had like basically Texas Parks and Wildlife in Texas and Michigan DNR there? Okay, got it.
Yeah, because they know their best lakes. I mean, they're and the what has happened over the years is as these DNRs see this project as a reason to as a launch point or a way to bang their chest a little bit, say we're really doing a good job in our state. And they are. They've really, since we started this in 2012, we've seen incredible improvements in bass fishing in every state, basically. So this is something that kind of is a litmus test for these states and a way for them to say, yes, we're doing a good job, and to pull in tourism dollars from nearby states or, the communities within their state for these cities that really depend on tourism dollars from anglers.
Yeah.
So 2 months of research kind of goes into, once we get the fisheries department's rankings, we send out surveys to all sorts of folks in the Bass Nation, because they fish thousands of lakes across the United States. And then once we get all that information, we squeeze it together and then start looking. Then comes our hard part, where we start looking at actual tournament data. How much it take to win. We look at big bass. The big bass projects like in Florida and Texas, and see what lakes are really kicking out the big fish. And then once we compile all that information, the rankings kind of take care of themselves. You can see the average winning weights are 25 pounds. And then the next lake, well, their average weight's 23 and some change. And so we kind of use that to put everybody in order. And what comes out is 100 best bass lakes.
So this year, Lake Fork is number one. And is it usually, without question, is it usually one that stands out amongst it? Or is it like, did you have a handful of 3 or 4 other lakes that literally it could have been any of them and nobody's going to argue?
This year, I think Lake Fork really stood out. Just like the year Falcon won, just like the year St. Clair won. Sometimes it's just so obvious that a lake is like at the top of its peak, because these lakes, as we've done them over the years, you see peaks and valleys. There's cyclical issues going on with every fishery depending on the fish and stocking programs, drought, too much water, all those things happen. But and effect, like Falcon's a great example. Number one, now it's made the list. It fell completely off the rankings one year because of incredible drought down there in South Texas. But to answer your question, Fork really stood out this year because it's an interesting lake because you don't get a ton of tournament data on it, right?
Yeah.
We get some Elite Series events down there because we work closely with the TPWD. But otherwise, we got to look at the Share Lunker program and then kind of talk to some guides in the area. And what was interesting, I think, about Fork is that a lot of people have considered it declining over the years. And I think what Patrick Walters illustrated when he cracked 100 pounds on a jerkbait is that it's not that the fish aren't there. It's that they're doing something or in areas that the traditional approaches to fork fish aren't working.
Yeah.
So I think, and then, Livesey catching 42 and change or something and limit. Open everybody. Fishing on Fork's still pretty solid. The fish are there. It's just the anglers are having to modify techniques to really take advantage of the fish that live there. But all in all, Fork really stood out this year over all the rest.
That's to me what makes Fork as incredible as it is. And I don't even think it gets the credit just simply because if you compare like some of the other fisheries that have won this, there's very few of them that get the constant pressure that Fork gets. You can remove every northern lake because they deal with winter and seasons and that sort of thing. So
ice covers it somehow or another. I don't.
Yeah, one way or another.
One
way or another, nature protects it. Is there any that have won multiple? I don't think so. If I was better at my job, I would have done research.
Actually won 2 in a row.
Oh, exactly. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, 17 and 18. That's when Toledo Bend was kicking out 50, 60, 10 pounders a year. And that was just on the Louisiana side, and that wasn't counting whatever the Texas side was catching. So Toledo Bend was rocking it for 2 years in a row. And I think, a lot of people will blame the rankings on on lakes getting overfished or becoming really popular and then fishing declining, because pressure does do that to a fishery. But there's have benefits and negatives probably to highlighting some of these lakes. But Toledo Bend loved it. I went down there and gave them a trophy when they got the second, and like 1,000 people showed up from that community to kind of wrap their arms around being proud of their fishery and that accomplishment. So, it's I think all in all, it's good. The community's made so much money. The economic impact of these rankings is really one of the true benefits, because there are a lot of mom and pop shops. Not enough coffee.
It's okay. You worked in the written word.
That depend on anglers for their living. Gas stations, grocery stores, things of that nature. And so when these come out and these lakes that are really shining get a lot of that extra tourism, these communities really thrive, and that's important to us.
Yeah, it is amazing. Even, traveling around with the elites, when you get to a community, and actually I remember how excited Toledo Bend was, and, and how much it means to them, because it's almost like now the world's seeing, just how good it is. Everybody says it's the best. Well, we won the best this year. Tell me this. Give me some sneaky ones. I mean, everybody focuses on number one. Is there some sneaky ones there that are slowly climbing the list? Ones that maybe just a dozen or so viewers that tune into this weekly would like to know about?
Well, one that if had these rankings come out a month earlier, we probably would have seen OHIV at the top, just because that little lake in Texas, it's a little smaller than Fork. I mean, it produced more team bass than any other lake in the country. But it was it had already received so much pressure by the time we started doing the research for this. We were afraid that, any more pressure to that lake could have been detrimental. It was still ranked in the top 10 in the nation. But it was really good. If I'm looking at Jordan Lake in North Carolina, it's made our rankings before, and has been ranked quite high, but it's one that you don't hear a lot about. And it has incredibly big, impressive largemouth in that lake. I mean, there's a lot of 10 pounders swimming in there, and a lot of people. North Carolina has some incredible fishing. If you look at some of the lakes in that state, that fisheries department has a lot to be proud of. And Jordan Lake is one. If I was going to go fishing next week, I might pick that lake just because I've never fished it before, and the numbers coming out of Jordan Lake in North Carolina are pretty incredible. I tell you, here's another one that if you're up in the Iowas.
Oh yeah, in the Iowas.
West Okoboji. I fished that lake.
Say it again.
West Okoboji.
Okoboji. That's fun to say.
It's where our friends Spirit Lake, Iowa.
Okay.
That's kind of their home lake. I went up and toured their facility a few weeks ago to see some new stuff they're coming out with the ICAST, and we got to fish West Okoboji for an afternoon, and it was awesome. And the guy's like, it's not bad at the moment, but it gets better. And you said that, the tournament last week was won with 28 pounds. I'm like, are you kidding me? In Iowa with largemouth? Yeah, it's not unusual. So if you look at these rankings and any of the lakes that you see on here that you've never heard of before, they are stellar fisheries, because you have 100 lakes that we talk about. And you think about all the lakes in the United States, Minnesota's got 10,000 of them just in that lake or in that state. So if you think about how good a lake has to be just to make the top 100 list, and you have any of these guys are worth putting on your bucket list and trying to check off.
James Hall, I appreciate your time, but I can't leave you without putting you on the spot. So I'm going to ask you right now, who's going to win Angler of the Year on the Elite Series this year?
Oh man, it's impossible to bet against Seth Feider. But here's what I'm going to say. My pick going in early this year was Corey Johnson, and I'm not counting him out. So if it's not Seth Feider, my money's going to go on Corey.
Okay. All right.
I mean, it's some low-hanging fruit, but at this point, that's all there is left to choose from.
I feel like you just picked that to try and keep me happy. I feel like every time the Canadians don't win, you trash talk me.
I'll tell you what, you'll owe me $1 if Corey wins, because I already have one of your dollars here signed somewhere.
You do.
From when you lost a bet.
I did lose.
A Canadian was going to win and an American did. So this time, because I'm picking a Canadian, you're picking an American, you're going to owe me another $1.
I never picked anyone. I just asked you a question. Why are you so combative?
I'm making general assumptions. Who are you? What do you not think? Who's your pick, Dave?
The person with the most cumulative weight at the end of the season every single time, generally. What is that animal that's hanging on your wall right there?
That one?
Yeah.
That is an Impala from South Africa.
Oh yeah. My dad drove one of those. really did. Had a giant bondoed. The side panel had a lot of Bondo on it, but yes. Anyways, I'll let you get back to your. Is it like is the corporate? I've never been to the Bassmaster offices. I know I've worked for you guys for over a decade. Never attended. Is the corporate vibe strong there this morning, James?
Oh, it's so strong. I can walk you around the hallowed halls of Bass.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, you want to? Here.
Oh my goodness!
This is we're huh?
Oh boy, let's see where we. Yeah, let's walk and talk. Let's walk and talk. Look at this.
We're gonna walk and talk. So this is the magazine we just put together. See, there's a wall there.
Wow.
And down that hallway is the brains of the operation, Bruce and those guys. This is our editorial group.
It looks incredibly corporate.
Mandy, Dave.
Good morning.
Hey.
Good morning.
Yeah, and then there's Brienne. She's a designer.
Hey, good morning.
Christella.
I'm never coming there.
Hola.
Good morning. You'll never see me.
They're
good
the ones
morning.
that make the magazine magic.
Thank you guys for everything you do. Hey, just I mean, this has gotten awkward and weird, like most of the things that we do on this #1 rated show. Can you yell good morning to everyone? Top of your lungs. Just do it. Say it's a corporate good morning. Good morning.
Look, corporate good morning from Dave Mercer. Everyone wave. Hey.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. They actually ran in their office when I mentioned your name.
Yeah, they did. They do. And hey, now I've been to the Bassmaster offices.
Yeah, I know that's the closest you're ever going to get.
That's it, James. Well, I'll let you get back to your taupe-laden world. But wow, you have accomplished a lot in the wildlife community as you walk in there. Just wow, turn that around. Let's see here. Well, goodness. I'm not near manly enough to visit your office, but we appreciate you spending time with us.
I enjoyed it. Thanks. I appreciate it, bro.
Editor-in-chief of Bassmaster Magazine. So that's it. That's all. All that's left is for me to do this part of the show where I look in that camera and I say, please give us a like and subscribe. It makes a big difference in our world, and it hardly even affects your world at all. So just go down in the corner and hit that like button on this video. Subscribe to this channel, and if you do that, I'll continue to do this so that week after week we can do what we just did. Enjoy being, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because Bob Cobb of the Bassmaster told you to. You hear?